Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. This is episode 1033, my interview with Devin Burke, and we're discussing his book, The Sleep Advantage. Enjoy. Hello, Devin. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Yeah, great to be here, Lee. Thanks for having me.
No, mate, really looking forward to it. You've got a book out called The Sleep Advantage, Optimize Your Night to Win Your Day. A very important topic, and a lot of, I guess this topic of sleep is becoming more popular nowadays than it was in the past. But before we jump into your book, I really want to find out about your journey because it sounds like an interesting one. And you embarked on a bit of a health journey in your personal life some while ago now. But just tell us about, the journey there and what made you focus on health.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story. I'll give you the condensed version. I lost several family members at a young age to cancer. And that really is what piqued my interest into health. But I thought I was going to become a physical therapist. And I actually got into a few doctoral programs. I went to college for exercise physiology and health promotion, and then took a 2.5-month backpack trip. And on the trip, I realized I wasn't really that passionate about physical therapy, but I had no idea what I was going to do as a career if I didn't do that. And then I met someone that I was working with who was working with a health coach. No idea that was even a thing. And she started telling me a little bit about her work with her coach. And I was like, man, this sounds amazing. So I eventually enrolled in a health coaching program, and that sent me on like a 13-year journey of intensive workshops and trainings with all different types of personal development, health trainings, psychological trainings, and eventually led me to help people with their sleep. I was working with a lot of high-performing entrepreneurs. You can imagine a lot of stress. Oftentimes people weren't sleeping. And so then I looked into what was available for these people, and I found sleeping pills. And I was like, well, this isn't a good solution. And so the more I dove into like the science of sleep, the more I realized, wow, this is massive for performance, for just health and longevity. Every aspect of our life is connected to sleep. And so, long story short, I was able to help that one person. So I said, well, if I can help one person, I can help thousands or even millions of people. And so that's kind of what led me up to.
So you went from what, like, I don't know if it's generic, but health coach to more a niche of helping people with sleep, or is that still wrapped up in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of my journey. I've helped people solve a lot of problems over the years. The last 6 years been specifically sleep. But more so is more, I would say, life and performance coaching with a dash of health before sleep. But everything's connected, so I kind of took all the things that I was learning and tailored them specifically to sleep, and we get fantastic outcomes for our clients. And so, that's kind of how that panned out.
Quite a journey, 13 years of putting yourself through the training as well. And obviously that'll pay dividends when you're helping others now. I mean, did you start helping people immediately and then learn as you went along for those 13 years, or did you really work on your trainings and then start?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination. I was learning things, and I'm a student at heart. So I continue to invest in myself. And so I was learning all these different techniques. And then when I would learn a technique or a tool or a strategy, obviously I would try it on myself first. And if I felt like it was useful, then I would share it with the people that I was working with, so I was always one step ahead of the people I was working with as far as, knowledge and coaching. But over the years, I've honed and developed skill sets and really kind of tailored and realized what really truly works to solve specific problems. And that took a long time. And I continue to learn new tools and strategies and insights to support people as well as myself. That's the beauty about helping people.
Well, life's always changing, isn't it? And so is the field of health. And you need to be up to date so you can best help your clients, I suppose, and yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, everyone wants to feel good. Everyone wants to, live a happy, long life. And, there's definitely ways to shortcut that and to do things that make you feel good and give you the greatest opportunity for a long, healthy life.
Yeah. What did you find when you started working with people in the field of health? I mean, was it particularly those, entrepreneurs, executives, CEOs, or was it a variety of different people?
No, I worked with anyone that would say yes to me. When I was first
have to raise your hand to say, I need to focus on my health. Hey, hand up, and then you'd help.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody. Actually, my first client that I ever worked with, and this was probably about now 15 years ago, was my landlord, and I exchanged off the rent. She was kind of taking some off my rent, and yeah, I mean, it was anybody that had a health challenge. I said, hey, if you have a health challenge, let me see if I can help you. And then that evolved over the years drastically and quickly as I continued to learn and develop, which then a number of years I was working with, as I mentioned, very high performing entrepreneurs, people that had demanding jobs, a lot of responsibilities. And that's really when I, discovered this massive problem around sleep and just dove into that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess there's so many facets of health that, you must get involved in, whether it's a weight issue or a stress issue or anything like that. Was there anything in particular you found about these people, that you felt as that you could, I guess, practices that you could share that you found in common with them all?
I mean, at the end of the day, the root of most people's health challenges, including their sleep challenges, is stress. It's some sort of mental, emotional stress that then becomes physical stress. Sometimes it's environmental stress. But at the end of the day, that's really what it always comes down to. It's either the body is physically stressed because of something mental, emotional, or bad habits, or there's something in their environment that's actually poisoning them. That's toxic. And so, but if you want to just, really narrow it down, at the end of the day, it's stress. That's what it is.
Stress. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It makes sense. So talk to us about sleep. Where do we begin? Because sleep is important, and I don't know if I sleep enough often. I probably do 6.5, 7 hours a night, which I assume is probably not enough, but it seems to be just what works for me.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's sleep need is very dependent on several factors: their lifestyle, their genetics, how hard they push mentally and physically. There's so many things that kind of factor in to the question of, well, how much sleep do I actually need? And, according to the National Sleep Foundation, adults need between 7 and 9 hours. That's quite a range. Most people don't get that. Most people get less than 7 hours. And there are about 1% of the population that have a, genetic mutation where they don't need as much sleep. A lot of us wish we had that, but a lot of us don't have that. And sleep's one of those things that people just kind of don't think about until it really becomes a problem. And I was one of those people. I took it for granted. I'm a great sleeper. So I never really knew that.
You're always a great sleeper?
Always a great sleeper. Yeah. Right. Actually,
how many hours would you sleep?
Man, now I sleep between 8 and 9 hours a night. Depending on my lifestyle and training and things like that. But I've always actually my nickname growing up, my family used to, tease me, call me narco, short for narcoleptic, because they would all be watching the football games on Sunday and I'd be passed out, and I could literally sleep on a bench in a park or in an airport, on a floor or something like that. That's a gift. Most people, they feel like they need to have the perfect conditions in order for sleep to happen. That's definitely not the case for me. No,
I feel that there's probably a lot of people out there that sleep and feel like that's just how they sleep. But I guess with your work, there must be things that we can do to help us sleep. Like, as I said before, I sort of sleep. I try and be pretty ritualed with my bedtime and waking up time. But like last night, I was in bed and I sort of didn't really go to sleep until about 11. And then I was sort of rolling around in the middle of the night as well. Obviously to do with stress, I guess, but I'm not sure. And you sort of wake up and you keep moving on with your day, don't you? And I think a lot of people must be like that. They just take it for this is what it is and keep going on without actually focusing on the root cause of how to get more sleep.
Yeah, and it's so common. It's one of it's the first thing to go. People sacrifice their sleep. They don't prioritize or protect it. or they don't do something about it. And this is true for all health ailments. They don't do something about it until it becomes really, really painful and it starts affecting other areas of their life. I always try to, get to people before that happens, but oftentimes the people that we work with at Sleep Science Academy, we work with people mostly in the United States, all across the country. They're the ones that tried all the medication, the supplements, the therapies, and they're still not sleeping. And oftentimes they after speaking with us, they realize it's more of a psychological issue than a physical one. But we do address the physiology, the psychology, and sleep environment, which is most people are aware of. Hey, the room should be cold and dark. You don't want blue light or your devices in the bedroom. These are sort of common things you can read on the internet. A lot of times people don't really do those things, even though it help massively with the sleep quality.
Are they the three sort of areas that you focus on when dealing with sleep and improving it?
Yeah, absolutely. In that order,
physiology, psychology, and environment.
Yeah, so psychology first, physiology, and then environment. And most people start it when they're having issues. They'll look at their environment, then they'll look at their physiology, and then lastly, they'll look at their psychology. And that's actually you really want to flip that around. First, you want to look at your psychology, then your physiology, and lastly, you want to optimize your environment. Okay, so where do we start with the psychology? So one of the things, we spoke about just before we started recording this podcast, is you can't separate your day from your night. And so all the things you do throughout your entire day dictate whether or not you're going to sleep well. And so one of the simple, lowest hanging fruit things that everyone can do listening to this podcast, starting literally today, is making sure that you're not going back to back from appointment to meeting, or even if it's, you want to have space throughout your day. And the reason is because this will allow the mind and body to kind of down regulate and shift down, so to speak, so that it's not such a hard shift at the end of the day. So I like to give the analogy. It's like if your body is a battery, it's picking up all these sort of charges, and we need to discharge throughout the day. And if we're not discharging, there's going to be a lot of energy in that battery, and it's going to be really hard to discharge some of that tension and pressure that's built up in the mind-body system. So simple thing everyone can do is just prioritize space throughout your day. It could be 10 minutes. It could be, taking a quick energy break, drinking some water, taking a walk, breathing, ideally something away from technology. But if you start doing that simple practice, it'll help. It won't be such a hard thing at the end of the night to your mind won't be so racing, your body won't be so revved, and then your body knows how to sleep.
Feel like that. Yeah.
A lot of us do, yeah.
That's really important. I think like in the lifestyle that we live, or most of us live now, it seems like that we always just have more and more put on our plates. And we intentionally put more on our plates too, I think, without thought. And then that sacrifices obviously our sleep and our downtime as well throughout the day. And I'm certainly guilty. I think a lot of people are these days, is that, I'm busy in my career. So I'm running from one thing to the next. But then even in those gaps that I get, I'm often looking at the phone. What messages come in? What's, who's clicked on the link on Facebook, or whatever it might be, So there is really no downtime.
You got to control the inputs. So making intentional space for silence, silence is something that a lot of us don't ever make space for. Like literally just doing nothing is doing something, and it's necessary, and it's so important for our health and for our sleep. And we, like you said, a lot of this comes from feeling like we're never doing enough. And so people try to cram so much into a day because everyone always feels behind for whatever reason, and without examining, how they're feeling that way or why they're feeling that way. And that leads to a lot of issues. Well, it's a lot of health issues, including insomnia and sleep challenges, are self-chosen. They're just because people are just not aware of these underlying patterns that are keeping them from their body from doing what it knows how to do. The body knows how to sleep. We often just get in the way.
Okay, so I like that. That's a really good tip. Manage your day. Manage your calendar.
Yeah, and it's funny because people are like, "Well, that's interesting. It doesn't. How is that related to sleep?" but hopefully now people can see how exactly that's related to sleep. There's a lot of things that we just don't realize. Everything is connected to sleep, and sleep's connected to everything. So you can't separate your day from your night. And oftentimes people try to do that. And they focus on, they totally disregard what they're doing throughout the day. And then they wonder why they can't sleep at night. And so when we work with clients, we look at, hey, what are you doing throughout the day? How are you thinking? What are your habits, behaviors? Are you drawing boundaries around things? And then also really getting deeply into the psychology of like, do you have expectations around sleep? Are you trying to control or manipulate your environment and use things so that you can sleep? There's all these underlying things that people find themselves doing that are not useful for getting a great night of sleep.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, I remember you sort of talking about sleep pills and things like that, and I don't agree with that sort of thing generally, but a lot of people take them.
And they take them for a reason. They take it because for two reasons. One, it's easy. It's easy just to take a pill. It's much more challenging to create space in your day and have, really do some of the work that we do at Sleep Science Academy. And also, that's kind of the first line of defense. People have sleep issues. The doctor just says, hey, here's a script. Here's Ambien. Here's Lunesta, clonazepam. Here's Xanax. Here's this and that. And there's the time and a place for medication. Thank God that we have it. But those are Band-Aids. They're not addressing the underlying root causes of patterns and habits, lifestyle choices that need to really be looked at to really solve sleep at the root versus kicking the can down the road, which is really what you're doing when you're taking medication.
Yeah, and I would assume, and I could be very incorrect in this, but if you take medication, then you'll be reliant on it. And then that medication too could become less effective over the longer term.
Well, it often does become less effective, almost always. And so your tolerance goes up. And then what people do is they go from one medication to the next. And then eventually all the medications stop working. And then hopefully they hear me on a podcast like this and get the support they really were missing.
Could do something different.
Yeah, because it's not the answer. Sleeping medications are not the answer. No matter what the pharmaceutical companies want you to believe, your doctor's well-intended. Again, there is a time and a place for medication, but really they're meant to be short-term solutions while you're addressing the underlying root causes. So you can't just address the symptoms and expect for things just to be better. You have to really address the root cause.
Like many things in life. What, on the psychological front, what else do you think that we could look at in our day-to-day?
There's three patterns that I've identified with people that have sleep issues. One of the big ones is perfectionism. People that are trying to perfect things, trying to control things. So if you're listening to this and you're somebody that is like that is, very much a perfectionist or tries to control a lot of things, just learning to release and relax and really understanding how showing up that way creates tension, unnecessary tension and pressure, which leads to not being able to sleep. So there's some underlying patterns that people need to really understand and address. But anything really looking at what are your self-chosen stressors? Like, what is the thing in your life right now? Is it your finances? Is it your relationship? Is it health concerns? Is it beliefs you have about yourself? Like when we work with people, we do a deep dive in their thoughts and beliefs to really understand, well, what are the beliefs and the thoughts that are not useful for helping you to sleep? And oftentimes people think that the thoughts that they're having are their own, and they soon realize that those thoughts are not their own because there's hundreds of other people that have the same exact thoughts. And they also realize very quickly that those thoughts and beliefs are not useful, not just for getting sleep, but just in life in general. And so then it's a matter of, okay, well, how do we, cognitively restructure some of these thoughts or think about them in a different way so that you can be free from the suffering that comes along with believing our thoughts and stories that are just detrimental.
Yeah. And that's deep work. That's really deep work.
You got to go deep. If you don't go deep, you don't get to the root. And, sometimes people just want to stay on the surface level, but, if you stay on the surface level, just treating the symptoms or addressing the symptoms, you're going to kick the can down the road. So you got to go deep. Yeah. You got to get uncomfortable. You got to be willing to really, take responsibility for the roles in which you've created some of these challenges in the first place. And a lot of people pretty much lie to themselves, and then they start to believe those lies, and then they don't take responsibility. They blame other people for their challenges, and that's no way to live, because it's you're not going to get what you want if that's how you show up. So we help people take responsibility, and then and we give them the tools and the support to then really move through what they need to move through to be more free.
Yeah, I think until you take responsibility, you're never going to, I guess, improve. And then that'll be the same with someone out there having a health issue right now or sleep issue, and ignoring, not putting up their hand, not wanting to get help.
Yeah,
that's just avoiding.
Listen, I get it. It's uncomfortable. Even especially for men, it's, we want the tough sort of like machismo, like I don't have an issue, or I can figure it out on my own, or, men have a real hard time asking for help. It's culturally conditioned, and so, but unfortunately, if you don't ask for help, you're never going to get it, and nothing's going to change. So,
then you look at it and go, well, it's uncomfortable to admit to that and take that responsibility and take that step. But it's more uncomfortable in the longer run to stay in these unhealthy patterns.
It's so true. And, the saying that the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't. And then that's like people have that in their minds. And they're like, well, I don't know. Maybe it is. It's what's unknown often is very scary for people. So they'll hold on to what's normal, even if the normal is uncomfortable. The thought of more discomfort is oftentimes enough to keep people stuck. And that's really a shame.
Yeah. On the psychological front, I want to ask you a couple of things here before we move on. But the one thing you sort of mentioned there is this whole piece of control. And I guess, we want to control everything, don't we? It's in our nature. But the more I learn and study and I guess become self-aware of, what I can control and what I can't, the better I can be in those situations where it's outside my control and it doesn't upset me as much anymore, if you know what I mean. Because
I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, and that must be a big part of your work too, because I think everyone, as soon as something, stresses them out, you look at it and you go, well, can you have done anything to control that? Yeah, maybe you could have influenced a bit better, or maybe you could have said something a bit different or whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a limited amount of things we can control.
That's right. And oftentimes we get very confused as to what's actually in our control and what's not. And then we beat ourselves up and judge ourselves for things that we had no control over, which is so silly and makes no sense. So it's like, as soon as you realize that, and you start to get better at understanding, well, what am I, ask your questions like, what am I making this mean? And really, is this in my control or out of my control? Like these simple questions of self-awareness and self-inquiry can be transformational. Because
how do you navigate this yourself?
Personally?
Is it just about being more self-aware so you can sort of look at this situation and analyze it with that thought of what's in my control and what's not?
Yeah, you know what? It's like a practice. It's like anything else. So the more you practice, and there is something to be said about, expanding your consciousness. So, practices like meditation, mindfulness, when you practice these things, you become more self-aware of your thoughts and beliefs. And then when you have, the tools, then you can actually start to, see what's true and what's not true. And sort of self-assess and really, it's like kind of peeling an onion back, but your body starts to resonate as you're mentally learning this. Then you can start to embody it, and it starts to become a way of your being. So it's not so much something that even has to be done consciously. It's kind of happening at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I guess, my second question about that the whole piece on psychology, because I believe, and you touched on it, meditation, practices of self-awareness are really critical to this whole role of getting better sleep. Is there anything that you subscribe or prescribe to your clients?
Yeah, we tell them meditation is a fantastic tool. There's a lot of ways to meditate, and mindfulness meditation specifically has been shown to help with sleep. And this is really important distinction, though, Lee. You don't meditate so that you can sleep. You meditate just to meditate. That's it. If you're doing anything so that you can sleep, then there's a problem there. And the problem is you think that you need to do it in order to sleep. Or there's an expectation that if I do this, then I'll sleep. Or if I do this, my sleep will improve. And if that expectation then isn't become your reality, then there's another challenge we have. So whatever you do to try to improve your sleep, you just want to do it, not so that you improve your sleep, just because it's going to be helpful. It's going to create the most optimal conditions for sleep to take place. And so that's a very important distinction. And so a lot of times people are like, well, I tried the meditation and, I do this, sleep hypnosis thing and, it worked a little bit and then it stopped working. And the reason is you can use those even as like a Band-Aid. It's, you're not doing those things so that you can sleep. It's, but they're helpful to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think the meditation, my link on it was that, you meditate, but it helps you, like you started with, really manage your day better and manage, the things that come up better. You are more mindful and present throughout the day. And I think that in itself will help reduce that stress, which will then lead to a better night's sleep at the end of the day.
100%. Anything that's going to create more self-awareness is going to be good for your sleep.
Yeah.
Anything that's going to create more self-awareness or body awareness is going to then help you to navigate through what you need to navigate through to then be able to sleep better at night.
What about in the physiology front? What are we looking at there?
So anything that's good for your health is also good for your sleep. And oftentimes people have a lot of bad habits, like eating too much sugar, which destroys sleep, drinking alcohol, too much caffeine. The timing is really important for meals. So eating too close to bedtime can disrupt sleep. Not getting enough
How far away from bedtime should we eat?
I mean, it depends on your your metabolism, how fast you digest things.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you want like a 3-hour fasting window for most people.
Yeah.
So, let's say you want to be in bed by 10, you want to really be eating your dinner at like 6
or 7. Yeah.
Yeah. To give that 3-hour digestion period. So light is really important. We're so, I have a statistic. It's like 90% of people spend 90% of the time indoors.
Right. Sorry, you just cut out there for a brief minute. So light being very important. What was it?
Oh, so 90% of people spend 90% of the time indoors. And so that's a problem because we need light to help us sync our circadian clock, which is something in the physics.
Yeah. Just having a bit of a connection issue there, Devin.
First thing in the morning, if you could watch the sun rise and watch the sun set, that's going to help you have a healthy circadian rhythm. If you go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, that's also going to help you have a healthy circadian rhythm. And then there's something called adenosine that builds up in our bodies, and that creates what's called sleep pressure. And one of the most common things that people drink, caffeine, blocks adenosine. So it gets in the way of sleep pressure building, gives you this artificial sort of energy. And then you're not able to sleep at night. So, so caffeine and alcohol are usually the big ones for people. Most people are drinking alcohol because they don't know how to manage their stress. And so they use alcohol as a way of doing that. And alcohol is, it's a diuretic. It's a neurotoxin. Do I love a glass of red wine from time to time? Absolutely. So, but if you're doing that because you're trying to, manage your stress and you don't have tools to manage your stress, it's a problem. And if you're doing it too often or too close to bedtime, it's absolutely disturbing your sleep quality.
Yeah.
So, so just simple little lifestyle habits that really affect the physiology can absolutely affect sleep. Another one, Lee, is temperature. So our core body temperature needs to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit for sleep to happen.
Right.
And so there's things you can do, like take a hot shower, actually, believe it or not, to cool off your body temperature, or wear wool socks to bed, which kind of pull the blood from your core to your extremities, which actually drops your core body temperature. But doing things that can help sort of optimize body temperature would help with sleep quality. They're not, listen, these things are not going to solve insomnia, but they'll increase the quality of your sleep for sure.
How do you, so just looking at that, reducing your core temperature, and this is something that I'm quite, I'm always thinking about, because I reckon that's part of my problem sometimes when I don't sleep that well, is that I'm too hot, basically. And last night I did a gym workout, and then I'm getting into this. I always have done cold showers, but I'm sort of getting into cold baths now. So I jumped into cold bath for 10 minutes, and that was fantastic. Then I had some dinner, and then 3 hours later I was in bed. But I sort of rolled around last night for a little bit too long, and I really feel that if I could have reduced my core temperature better. And there was probably some other stresses too there, not helping. But what are some techniques there? You sort of talk about wool socks. Could you put gloves on as well?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. That oftentimes people don't like to wear gloves to bed. You can get away with wool socks, and wool, because if you're wearing cotton or something, your feet are gonna really stink. So wool's a little bit more appropriate and also warmer. So I'm a big fan of cold exposure as well. And I found that, when you're doing cold exposure, it's actually better to do it in the morning than in the evening, because what you're actually doing is, it's like the inverse of what you want to do. Because you're all the blood is going to your core to keep your organs functioning. So that's heating up your core versus like, we want to go in the other way to your extremities.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So a warm bath would be probably a better idea than a cold bath, closer to bedtime.
And close to bedtime, like as in, half an hour before you're going to bed, or right when you're going to bed, sort of thing.
Yeah. Within an hour, within an hour, because it does take, it does take some time for the body to start to adjust to temperature.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in Japan for a while, and hot springs there were quite common. And that was something that I'd do in an evening. And if I didn't do it in the evening, they'd have basically the hot springs at home. You'd have a nice hot bath before bed. And my sleep in Japan was probably the best it's ever been.
Oh, it's amazing.
I think that was one of the things that really helped.
Yeah, what do they call those? Onsens?
Onsen, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great thing in their culture, the Japanese culture. I'm a big believer in Zen and these types of practices that come from the East there, and the water and hot water and saunas and things like that. The Europeans using saunas. That's a fantastic strategy for detoxifying the body and also just calming the mind. Because often you can't bring your phone into a hot bath or a sauna or something like that. So it's like you just disconnect and you're sweating, and those things are so good for the body.
Yeah, and you find a lot of, particularly, all the women do it too, but the Japanese businessmen, they'll work all day, and they do work hard long hours, I suppose, and probably have a lot of stresses. But then they'll go to these onsens, and it's a ritual of a couple of hours of sitting in hot spas and dressing themselves and then relaxing after it as well at the venue before heading off. They
need it. It's
quite unique.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because of, like you said, the work ethic there. It's pretty bad, which is on the other side of that. That's where those karaoke bars, everyone goes to karaoke, gets hammered and sings to kind of like blow off some steam. That's not the best strategy for sleep. I think the other one would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that culture, they work very hard, and they actually sleep less. I think they sleep than any other country. I think they get the least amount of sleep at this point.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Even the kids don't sleep that much. Like the kids will be, surprised. Like the kids would be up until 10 or 11 at night and then getting up really early. And, whereas our kids were sort of in bed by 7 and getting up at 7,
Yeah. I mean, it's a cultural thing to really, work hard, be perfectionistic and they're, I think it's a cult, I forget that there's a term for it where people actually like work themselves to death. And there's actually a Japanese term for it. It eludes me at this moment, but even to have that, it's like, whoa. So there's definitely some challenges that culture has ingrained. I mean, as well as, around the world, a lot of times work is glorified. You're seen as not successful if you're not financially successful. And, to me, there's so much more to success than just, being abundant financially. But we're conditioned to sort of hustle and grind and work hard. And if you're not working, you're missing out and you're, falling behind and all of that stuff. All of those programs just lead to so much unnecessary stress. And it's really just silly when you kind of step back and start asking yourself, well, is that true? Like, is that,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've thought about this deeply recently too. And my I guess my attitude towards work, I love work. I can't stop working generally. And it really does cause a lot of stress in my life. But recently I've had a close family member pass and that's just sort of brought death to the table. And then this piece on control. And then I started just noticing in my work day going, you know what, I can't control that. Death is around the corner. Who gives a shit? I'm just going to have fun with this. And as soon as I started having that attitude of, just enjoying what I do and having fun with it and not caring but not caring, if that makes sense, about certain things, caring about my work and caring about what I do and my art, but not caring about if the outcomes don't work out the way I expected and having that, that relaxation of control over everything.
That's beautiful.
And certainly I think that can be a great way to push through and you can still be very successful, but you can enjoy it,
That's it. That's very stoic. But bringing death into your, there's practices in Tibet where they bring it, death to mind several times throughout the day. This is one of the best strategies that I personally use in my own life is thinking about death and thinking about, compared to death, literally at some point, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to, that's going to happen. Compared to that, is what I'm stressing about right now really that scary or big a deal or, and you almost always, it's like, compared to death, this is nothing. And it's, it really just, death can really put things in perspective, very, very quickly. And there's, through the centuries and throughout different cultures, there's several different practices to help utilize that insight to really help us live. And I find it personally to be very, very powerful.
Yeah. It's something that we need to think about often because what's it all mean at the end of it, and why is that enough a reason to give you that stress at that time? But yeah, no, I really love it, mate. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up here? I know you got to move on.
Yeah. I would say, if you're having struggle with your sleep, and you're trying all of these, things that you're reading on the internet, chances are there's probably something in your psychology that is a block. So, and one of the best practices that you can start to just practice on your own is letting go, surrendering, and accepting that, whatever your night brings. And sometimes this is a hard thing for people to understand and get, but the more you can actually just let go versus trying to figure it out or force it or control it, the greater opportunity your body is going to be in so that it sleeps. And it's amazing when you really can shift into a place of acceptance, sleep just happens because your body knows how to sleep. So everyone listens to this. Just remember that if you're struggling with your sleep, don't fight it because what you resist persists. Just allow it to be there. Don't judge it and just notice what happens. Yeah.
Good point. Mate, I love your work. Website for you, devinburke.com.
Sleep Science Academy. Yeah, I mean, devinburke.com is kind of my personal sort of website there, but Sleep Science Academy is the one that we, where we support people.
Okay, I'll stick that in the links, guys. And your book is available on Amazon, The Sleep Advantage, Optimize Your Night to Win Your Day. So guys, check it out there. And I'll stick a link in the show notes as well at thehiddenwhy.com. Devin, thank you so much, mate. I'm glad we made this happen. We missed it. I think we had to reschedule a couple of times, but there we go. We did it.
Hey, we're here, man. That's all that matters. So thanks for having me, Lee. Enjoy the conversation, and I wish you a great night of sleep.
Thank you, mate. And you too. Guys, check it out, thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families. You can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link and help support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so, you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.